What is justice? Have you ever wondered what this concept means? For example, how should we make our rules in society, our laws, so that they are just? Is there a right procedure to make legislation that guarantees that these laws are going to be fair and just? The American philosopher John Rawls created a theory of justice to answer this important question. He created a model, a procedure, so that we could create rules that are fair and just for everybody. His theory is quite abstract, so let me explain it with an imaginary example. Imagine that a great inventor has created a machine that can destroy you and transform you into a completely different person. This revolutionary machine works like this. You enter the machine, you press a button, and then you disappear. And immediately you reappear, in another body. So maybe you are someone of a different age, of a different gender maybe, of a different religion, of a different wealth. You don't know who you're going to be after going through this machine. How can this machine help us to create just norms? Imagine that we use this machine in the process of making norms. Let's make the norms following this procedure. We're going to talk, we're going to discuss, and we're going to make the laws, finding an agreement after we talk. But later, once that we have created the law, everybody must go through the machine. So you don't know who you're going to be when the law will be applied. How would this change your way of making the law? If you really don't know who you're going to be, would you make a law that discriminates people? It would be quite stupid because you might be one of them after going through the machine. So our law would be fair because you don't know if you are going to appear in the body of someone who has problems or who has health problems or who is poor or who has a different gender or race. Of course, John Rawls didn't speak about this machine. In his book, The Theory of Justice, he proposed a model, though that is quite similar. He said, if we want our laws to be just, we should try to make them with equity. And this can only be done if we create the law under a veil of ignorance. What is this? A veil of ignorance means that you don't know who you really are. So instead of making laws that benefit you or the group you belong to, you should make an effort to ignore the kind of person that you are. Imagine that you don't know who you are, and then try to make the rules forgetting the particular group you belong to. If you do that, the laws will be fair. This imaginary situation in which everybody makes the law under a veil of ignorance, meaning not taking into account their particular interests or circumstances, is called by John Rawls the original position. So what he says in his book is, the law will be fair and just if it is made under a veil of ignorance in the original position. Because in this case, we will take into account all different perspectives and we will not try to favor our particular standpoint. How would a certain law look like if we do it following this method? John Rawls thought that the law that is done under a veil of ignorance and in the original position will have two characteristics. It will follow the principle of equality and also it will follow the principle of difference. The principle of equality says that we will make rules that treat people with equality, with equity, that give equal rights, benefits, and freedoms to everybody, that give the same opportunities to everybody, regardless of the group they belong to or of their particular circumstances. But there is also a principle of difference, because if we make the rules under a veil of ignorance, we will try to favor especially disadvantaged people in order to re-establish equity. Now, it is important that you realize that the law made according to this procedure need not be an absolutely egalitarian law. For example, if we make the law like that, it is not necessary that everybody earns the same salary. That's not what Rawls is saying. Certain degree of inequality would be acceptable, says Rawls, but it should be according to one principle. Inequalities would be fair if they benefit everybody, not just the privileged, but also the people that are worst off. For example, in a society, it would be fair to pay a higher salary to those people that need an important effort in order to learn an important job. For example, if they want to become doctors or engineers, this takes a long time studying and it requires personal sacrifice. So it is fair that they receive an extra amount of money in their salary if they decide to work as engineers or doctors, as a compensation for this personal effort, personal sacrifice. But this is not unfair. If we pay extra money to doctors or engineers because they worked harder, that is not unfair because it benefits everybody. Having engineers and having doctors is beneficial, not just for them, but for all society, because their job can help also disadvantaged people.